good evening, my dear friends, colleagues, and retina doctors from all over the world. Welcome to another episode from our daily socio-scientific activity by the Egyptian Retinal Society around the retina world in 30 days. And as we know, in this program, we are hosting the world-renowned stars of medical and surgical retina from different countries, with whom we're going to explore some of their hidden aspects in their social life and personal life. And of course, they're going to give us their very specific pillar about medical or surgical topic from their choice. And learning from our guests and from their experiences in life and from their hardships is our main goal in this series. Today, we're going to land in one of the very characteristic and oldest countries in Europe, actually, with ancient culture and ancient traditions. Officially, it is known to have the oldest city in Europe, too, the oldest continuously inhabited city in Europe. Today, we're having our guest, Dr. Lukan Mishif from Bulgaria. Welcome, Dr. Lukan. Dr. Lukan is not only a brilliant surgeon, but he's also a very smart innovator. As we also know, he is always trying to find untraditional and technical solutions for various issues that he was facing in the OR. He's very fond of recording, and he always likes to get on live and broadcast his surgeries every day from the OR in the real time, so that all the people can watch it from all over the world. So welcome, Dr. Lukan. We're very happy to have you with us today.
Hi, Ahmed. Thank you very much for inviting me and for having me in these episodes. It's going to be exciting. Thank you.
I'm sure, yes. All right, so let's start by exploring some of the personal and social aspects in the life of a retinal surgeon like yourself. Would you please tell us about your early days in school, in college? When did you decide to become a retinal surgeon, and who was your main influence in that decision?
So it was definitely not from school days, but in the end of the school days, I was blessed to have my parents to be doctors. So my mother is a professor of ophthalmology. My father is a traumatologist. And one day I decided that there is nothing else to do but to go to medical university. So it was sort of passive suggestion. They never insisted about me getting into this, but it was passive influence, yeah.
Yes, okay. So did you ever go to the OR with your parents and see the surgeries and see the operations and stuff?
Yeah, actually somewhere in fourth course of medicine, fourth year of the medicine, I went to the traumatologist's operating room, and I found that this is a little bit rude as a technique, you know, broken bones, etc. It's a little bit more rude. And then I went to the ophthalmology OR to see my mother performing. As I remember, it was extracapsular cataract or something like that. And probably that was the time that I decided, okay, I'm going to go to ophthalmology. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so here in Egypt, if you go for ophthalmology, it should help you. It's the same thing in Bulgaria. You have to be, getting grades in order to be qualified to become an ophthalmologist, or it's only based on your choice.
No, after we are finishing medical university, you need to attend additional specialization, so as a residency, and there was an exam in order to start the residency, and it is for 3.5 years, and then we have examination and we take the specialty. But during the residency, the surgery is not really well, how should I say, we don't do it so much. So you need to have the good chance either to have a parent which will teach you, or a good mentor who will decide that he will teach you. So
who was your mentor? Who affected your surgical career, and where did you get your training?
Mostly my mother, actually. Mostly my mother, and later on, I must say that I went to Italy, and I have seen some surgeons from which I was impressed. These are like Professor Mariotti, Boscia, and later on, I must admit that YouTube played a huge role in my knowledge evolution, because there are a lot of educational channels. I definitely would mention Diego Ruiz Casas, Ulrich Spandau, and a lot of things can be learned from there.
Perfect. So did you, of course, you've faced some hardships throughout your surgical career. What are the main hardships that you faced? Did you ever stop throughout your career and say, no, I'm not going to continue on this path of becoming a vitreoretinal surgeon? Or you were, it was a challenge, a big challenge for you?
I remember when I started to do cataract surgery, phacoemulsification, I just went back from India because I went there for training, and I started to, like, more than 6 months, I was already confident in my cataract surgical procedures, and I was young and happy, hotshot cataract guy. And I decided, okay, now I will learn vitreoretinal surgery. And I remember my first attempt. Trust me, 6 months after that, I didn't touch the posterior pole of the eye. I was scared because there is a complete difference between cataract surgery and going behind in the posterior pole of the eye. I was not able to find my instruments, and I was scared. 6 months I didn't touch the posterior pole.
So why did you come back? Why did you come back after?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, because during that time I had, of course, my mother to back me up. I remember my first nucleus drop, and of course she continued the surgery, and I was like, okay, I need to learn this no matter how difficult it is, because I need to handle my complications alone, because my mother will not always be behind my back.
Yes, so of course you've had some surgical nightmares. Tell us about your worst surgical nightmare, and on the other hand, the case that you'll always remember with pride, and I'm so happy when you remember this case. Tell us about both.
The worst case scenario is expulsive hemorrhage, and it was a difficult case. It started like aqueous misdirection, and later on it converted to expulsive hemorrhage. So this was probably the toughest moment in my surgical career. The case that I will always remember, probably some of the toughest PVR cases. You know what is to have a totally funnel-like retina, and to be able, after 2.5 hours or 3, to flatten the retina, and later on even to have some function.
All right, so let's shift to some fun questions. We'd like to know about your vacations. We know that in Bulgaria, it's very famous for some pleasant spots for beaches. So do you have to go? Do you have the time to go to the beach, or just have being very busy with your patients, you just spend only the weekend? Tell us about where do you like to travel?
Yeah, of course I like to travel, but last 2 years it was COVID. Now it's completely different, but still, I have a villa on the Black Sea, so we really like to go there exactly because of the beaches. Otherwise, in the winter we like skiing, but
skiing, yes.
yeah, but we actually prefer to go in Austria or Italy. Of course, we have resorts here, but it's not like in Austria or Italy.
Yes, I want to ask you about your hobbies. Do you like to go for any sports activities, or just go for skiing, reading, cooking?
No, cooking is not a hobby, but it's sort of a habit. But the hobby, you know, when we are childs, just the toys are getting bigger. So I'm really a fan of rally racing. I have few racing cars. So
Few racing cars.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, one of them is Lancia Delta Integrale, which was legend before. The other one is Subaru Impreza, and we have another car for tarmac circuit racing. It's a Renault Clio Super 2000. So yeah, it's interesting, definitely, and there is a lot of engineering there. So I really
Yes,
like this. Yeah,
no doubt, because it's full of engineering, and I know you're quite fond of that.
yeah.
Yes. All right, so now I think we come to the end of the social part, and we have to go for a break for a couple of minutes, and we'll be back again with our main topic for tonight. So stay tuned with us. Back again to the interesting part of our interview today. Moving to our topic, which is a very interesting one, and it goes perfectly well with the current trend all over the world, which is about shifting from the traditional surgical microscope into the 3D digitally enhanced operating microscopes in retinal surgery. So Dr. Lucan is going to demonstrate how he is using fluorovitrectomy and the digital filters to enhance visualization in 3D surgery. So Dr. Lucan, would you please go ahead with your videos?
And this is one of the videos. So the idea is to find a way to enhance the traditional visualization. As you see here, this is the regular image. We have used trypan blue for that, and of course we have not bad visualization. And I will fast forward a little bit in order to see the difference. Just a moment. Now probably I will switch to the Ilm Enhancement Filter, which was a clever playing with the contrast and color channels in the Ingenuity system. This is what I like most, that it is an open platform, so they don't restrict your image, so you can do it as you want. And if you are able to find a border of contrast between color wavelengths, we might enhance some tissues of interest, as the ILM in this video. Now a little bit more fast forward, and I just want to show the difference when we switch off the filter.
So which filter is that?
This is the ILM enhancement filter. I will just return a little bit. So you see the difference on the left image and on the right image. This is the filter for actually enhancing dark tissues, because the aim here is to find the blue stained tissue and to increase the contrast between the blue stained tissue and the underlying retina. So sort of there is a subtraction of the red channel and more or less enhancement of the green and blue channel. So this was one of the videos.
Let me ask you, since you already stained the eye lamp, so why do you use the filter in this place? I mean, does it give you an additional advantage of staining the eye lamp, which is already stained?
Yeah, just a second. I will show you another movie on which we have myopic fundus. So when you have a myopic fundus, you know the visualization is really bad, no matter we stained or not the eye lamps. So just a second. Now in this fundus, there is a epiretinal membrane, and there was a silicone extraction here. So now when we do the staining, you will see that there was eye lamp peeling already done. So just a moment. Here, this is the staining. And when we have a lot of tissues above the retina, now you will see probably where is the area of the previous peeling. And now when I switch to the filter, you see how the contrast between the tissues is enhanced. And I think sometimes this is more beneficial. You see, especially where is the pooling, which is on the direction of the 6 o'clock. So here, one might appreciate the better visibility.
So it actually makes you see the blue stained tissues more clear.
Exactly.
If it's an eye lamp or if it's an epiretinal membrane, so whatever is going to be stained in blue.
Especially the border, you know,
Yes.
we need to find the border to start the peeling. So it's a little bit better than the traditional view. Of course, it's related to the quality of the staining agent. So the trypan blue or membran blue duo or brilliant peel, it should be better. So
the Ingenuity system actually has got many other filters that you can use. Do you use any of the other filters in your vitrectomies? Do you have to use them?
So sometimes the red-free filter might be useful, especially when it comes to hemophthalmos or something like that. Otherwise, I think that a custom approach should be searched by the surgeons in order to find the best settings, because let's say OM filters which are included in the system, I don't really find any major use in them. As I have also two other filters which are for anterior segment, and they are really interesting. Later on I can show them, of course, but here you can see the contrast between the actually black and white tissues, because the blue and the black, they are on one side, and the white underlying tissue and the light can be contrasted. So these filters, I must say, they are contrast enhancements, in my opinion. Now, this is the video on which I use fluorescein, actually.
Yes, this is what I wanted to see.
Yeah. The fluorescein was something that I read about it, and it was used in 1986 or somewhere around this year in Japan for pediatric vitrectomies. And I don't know why it didn't found the way later on, probably because at that time the biome systems and wide field viewing system were not so popular, so it was contact lens vitrectomy. which is 30 degrees vitrectomy. And fluorescein is not so good in staining, let's say, the hyaloid, but it's really good in staining the peripheral vitreal stroma, if I might say like that. And the basis of the vitreous is also well stained. So here you can see, you can appreciate how the vitreous strands are seen, and I can create even a small PVD. But still, when I try to eat the vitreous with the cutter in the periphery, you see well-formed vitreous. And what is the difference between the fluorescein and triamcinolone is that the triamcinolone only covers the surface of the vitreous. It doesn't penetrate the vitreous, but the fluorescein is highly soluble and highly penetrating in the vitreous. So here we might see part of the PVD, and we might see also the vitreous. Here is the peripheral vitreous, and I'm using this approach from year and a half, and frankly I found myself doing, here is the PVD, doing better vitrectomy, and which leads to less silicone emulsification, because we know that if we leave more vitreous, the vitreous acts like a detergent, which induces early emulsification, no matter if you're using 1000 or 5000 centistock silicone. So I find that fluorovitrectomy enhances my visibility. Here you don't need actually no filter. This is a regular image. Probably the trick is the concentration of the fluorescein. It shouldn't be above 0.1%. So you take 10% solution from the vial, and you need to dilute it to 0.1. Otherwise, it will be too concentrated, and it is you will find difficulties to clean it from the vitreous, and it will impair our visibility later. So now I switch hands, and you see this is the peripheral vitreous, and I was amazed how much vitreous is there when it is stained. Otherwise, I'm pretty sure that sometimes we skip some parts of the vitreous. So that is why I like to use it.
Yes, I can see that it clearly stains the cortical vitreous in the periphery.
Exactly.
But it doesn't stain actually the posterior hyaloid when
No.
when you induce posterior vitreous detachment. So maybe the triamcinolone at that point would be more beneficial in seeing the posterior hyaloid and detaching the vitreous.
I'm absolutely agree with this. And of course, if you are not sure that you have induced the PVD, you can combine the triamcinolone before or after fluorescein staining. Normally, I use it after fluorescein staining. And later on, of course, this is the case with macular hole. This will be the staining of the posterior of the ILM. So here I will use a filter also. Now this is the induction of the flap, pinch and peel, and now I will switch to the Ilm Enhancement Filter. Now this is the Ilm Enhancement Filter. So clearly it highlights the stained membrane. So in some amount, it sacrifices the peripheral detail because the light intensity is also altered with this filter. But when you increase the magnification and you close the light pipe a little bit more to the area of the interest, you can see now how well the ILM can be seen, especially the edge where we need to grab the ILM. So this is the beauty of the Ingenuity. You can play a lot with your color preferences, and you can create your own filters. So you know, we have more or less sometimes differences in our color perception. So these filters are actually dependent also from the microscopes. I found that a filter for a Zeiss microscope or Leica microscope or Mueller video, Alcon Luxor, they are not universal. So you need to sort of fine tune the filter to the microscope, because some of them, for example, Provil, they have a lot of contrast. So there is a difference between the contrast, depth of field. So the filters should be customized, and the Ingenuity is giving us this opportunity. So this was one of the cases.
Actually, I like the fluorescein staining of the vitreous, but I'm so much concerned about toxicity or safety. What about the toxicity issues to the retina? What do you think about that?
In that concentration, actually, according to the studies which were performed in the 80s, no adverse events actually. Of course, if we are doing this, let's say with 10% concentration, probably there might be an issue. I haven't used it in such concentration. But on other hand, if we remember when we are doing fluorescein angiography, especially in diabetic cases with leakage, you know, there is a lot of vitreous leaking inside the eye. So there is a direct contact with the retina and fluorescein from the vessels. And the fluorescein angiography actually probably was one of the most common procedures in our diagnostic approach in diabetic cases in the past. So up to now, I haven't found any toxicity. Concern might be the light toxicity because of the intensity of our light pipes, where the digital visualization, no matter if it is an Ingenuity or Artivo or something else, we can use a lower amount of light intensity because of the sensitivity of the camera sensors. So yes. Yeah, it's again a beneficial thing.
All right, so interesting. I'd like to ask you a few questions about the 3D surgery in general. So how do you, in your practice, how is the 3D surgery or the digital microscope replacing the traditional microscope in your practice? Are you performing all your cases in 3D now? And
yes.
What about, yes?
Yes, actually, probably it took me like between 6 months and 1 year to go to 100% heads up. I started to work with 3D microscope in 2018, and for the posterior segment, it is a game changer for me. I'm quite sure about that. But for the anterior segment, I needed transitional time, especially when you need to suture. The suturing was sort of challenging for me, and probably the last procedures which I switched to do heads up was anterior segment reconstructions and glaucoma surgeries, trabeculectomy. But nowadays I'm working 100% heads up, and actually I don't want to go back to the traditional microscope.
You can never go back. If you're 100% 3D, you can never go back.
Yeah. Sometimes in remote locations, there was a need to work on a traditional microscope, and actually I was not comfortable with the traditional microscope. So yeah.
Yes, probably because the anterior segment surgery at the Ingenuity at that time was not, the system itself was not so responsive. So anterior segment surgery itself wasn't very easy when switching to 3D. but maybe nowadays it's easier. I think on the Zeiss system too, it's much easier for the anterior segment. It's very responsive, and it doesn't take much time, as in the Ingenuity. This is my opinion, of course. There was no any difficulties. Did it delay your surgical time in the beginning? I mean, because people are so much skeptical about changing to 3D. So what would you tell them? What's your experience about it? What's the learning curve?
If we are talking about posterior segment surgeons, I'm fairly sure that they will switch to the posterior to the Ingenuity or Artivo really quick, because we see more details. For example, the traditional field of view of the microscope is something small, and now when we are looking on a 55-inch or 65-inch screen, we have 1 square meter maculas. So it's really important. Another thing which is not so important, but how should I say, something related to the age, the presbyopia. When we're looking through the microscope, actually the depth of field is dependent from our accommodation, if we still have one. But when we're looking on the Ingenuity screen or the Artivo screen, this is far vision. So presbyopia.
So how far do you keep the machine, the screen?
It's interesting. When I used a 55-inch screen, it was 1 meter and 80 probably, no more than 2 meters apart from me, but no closer than 1.5 meter, because the parallax is switching back. Now I'm using 65-inch screen, and it is somewhere of again 1 meter and 80 centimeters. 80 centimeters. Of course,
about 2 meters.
About 2 meters.
About 2 meters. Yes.
Maximum, no more than 2 meters. And it is related to the operating room, the space there. And if it's a large operating room, you can place the TV whenever you want. But if it's a small operating room, you should obey that. But yeah, the distance is 180, maximum 2 meters.
So a lot of benefits from the 3D surgery, actually. So improving the surgeon's comfort, the ergonomics.
Not only that.
What else?
Not only that, the all staff in the OR is engaged to the surgery, and it's funny, but sometimes when we're doing a retinal detachment surgery and I'm looking for holes, you know, you indent somewhere and you are focused on this area, and suddenly one of the colleagues says, "Oh, there is a hole there." Where? On 6 o'clock. So yeah. Actually, it helps to the surgeon, because all the staff is engaged in the surgery. Of course, the enormous deductive value of this is unique, because the learning curve of the residents can be so much faster, because they see exactly the same as the surgeon. Otherwise, if you are on the assisting ocular, you see in 2D without depth of field, so there is no comparison.
Yes, so I believe, yes, this is a really game changer in the field of vitreoretinal surgery, and maybe, of course, in the anterior segment surgery as well. I think it's going to be the future, and it's got a lot of benefits other than the surgeon's comfort and the educational. It's a very important educational tool, and also it improves the visualization, which also improves the surgical outcome for the patients. Thank you, Dr. Lucan, for spotting the light on this very important surgical tool, and I believe this will be the future. And I'd like to thank you so much for being with us today and giving us your insights and thoughts. It was very interesting to speak about the 3D surgery. I hope many people will be more encouraged now to shift to 3D surgery, which will be very beneficial. And I think in the coming future, it will be, the main surgical approach for many cases. We've come to the end of our interview now. I'd like to thank our audience for watching and for staying with us. Hopefully, we'll see you back again in many other episodes in our scientific activity around the retina world in 30 days. Thank you, Dr. Lucan. Hope to see you again. Thank you to all our audience. Good night.
Thank you, Ahmed. All the best.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.